Happy Sunday. Let's do a little Sunday stream. That ought to be fun. Get a little more into this current Class B study, Easy Journey to Other Planets. We started it yesterday. And so today, let's get a little more of this information. I think that's a good way to spend a 30 minutes to an hour on a Sunday. Why not? Okay, check. Sound is good. All right, very good. Wonderful. So, welcome everybody. This is Jay Baldale. Welcome back to my channel where we study some pretty fun books. Maybe some of them are a little dated, but they're still pretty good. They're still pretty fun to read and give some food for thought, give some practical applications into your life, and give some insight into things that from time to time bubble up in the trendier discussions. But all things have their turn in life, so I'm sure at some point nobody's going to care, or very few people compared to the kind of uptick of caring. You know how it is. Doesn't matter what it is in life. All things have their season, huh? And then a new season comes along. Okay, music playing, chat pulled up. Very good. Let's pull a tarot card and then let's go ahead and read this book. I hope everybody's been having a wonderful April. Man, we're already past the halfway point. Time does fly when you're having fun. So that's why it's flying for me. Maybe for you, it's been like a bit stressful, and so you feel like it's dragging on. Well, maybe what Einstein said was right. Okay, tarot cards, what would you like us to know as we pursue more of our journey towards other planets? Welcome in, everybody just coming in. Happy Sunday. Vinod Kumar, welcome. Good to see you. I hope you're having a good day. Simon Sprunky, welcome. I hope you're having a good day. Okay, let's see. Cut the deck, and it's this card right here, which is Earth. Oh, air, man. That was what my other guess was gonna be. That's all right. Huh? 10 Swords, man. This card's come up for us a few times. Well, probably for good reason. Usually does. And let's see. Vinod Kumar says Radha Krishna, and Simon Sprunky says game. Wait, that's weird. It says game on one. It says how are you on another. I'm good. Thank you for asking. How are you? Okay, so this Ten of Swords, though, is one of those cards that can pop up and maybe make you feel like you're not doing so good. But let's maybe try to take a new look at it than what we have before. Simon Sprunky, I'm glad you're doing good. I'm glad to hear that. That's always good news when my fellow people of the world are enjoying life. So, if the tens represent Malkuth on the Tree of Life, so the final stage, you could say, completion. And swords are our thoughts, our mind, the way it works. But we also see the glyph of the Tree of Life here. Well, maybe we could look at it in the way of the way you're turning all your thoughts toward one central focus, and whatever that focus may be, for good or for bad. Since the card is called ruin, but sometimes we're putting a ruin towards things that we don't need to be focusing on so much anymore, putting a ruin towards improper focus of our thoughts, and therefore regaining a better focus for our thoughts. And so perhaps the way that some of us have been working on doing just that, Sun and Gemini, so those two rays of solar light, yeah, perhaps we're saying that one of these isn't doing us so good, one of these other ones is doing us so good. So let's put our focus in on that and let's put a ruin toward that other one. But perhaps for you, the pendulum's swinging the other way, and you feel like you just can't stop dwelling on the things that are making you feel like you're having a struggle right now. Well, you have the key then. You know what one to focus on and which one to not focus on. But also, with what I know this book's going to be teaching us, this could be the way that, in order to make this easy journey to other planets, we need to put all of our energy, like we saw in that lust card, we need to redirect all of that inward to the most inner, how do I say, the most inner, vehicle kind of, most inner center to achieve just that easy journey to other planets. So, but you're going to need all 10 of those spheres working in harmony. So maybe that's for the ruin of your physical body and the gain, therefore, of another one of your vehicles, another one of your bodies, so that you can start making this travel. Okay, he did say a little bit of that yesterday, but let's see what else he's got to say today. We stopped right here after this little quote, so let's pick right back up. All right. Okay. What are these anti-material activities? They are medicines. For example, when a man falls ill, he goes to a physician who prescribes medicines which eventually cure the suffering patient. Similarly, the materialist is ailing, and he should consult an expert transcendentalist physician. What is his ailment? He is suffering the tribulations of repeated births, deaths, diseases, and old age. Once he agrees to put himself under the back to Godhead treatment, he is able to transfer himself to the anti material world where there is eternal life instead of birth and death. Probably should have added that to my bit of highlighting there, that part right there. Back to Godhood. Well, based on what we understand, well, I know some of us, maybe not all of us, totally understand Kabbalah or study Kabbalah, but that back to Godhead, well, I guess that would be the top of the tree, but Tifereth is often what leads us there. So turning yourself inward towards that, like we see in that card, perhaps for the ruin of the material and the gain of the anti-material. And Joaquin Alegre, welcome. I hope you're having a good day. Annihilation of the material world takes place in two ways. Partial annihilation occurs at the end of every 4.3 million times 1,000 solar years, or at the end of each day of Brahmaloka, which is the topmost planet in the material world. During that time of partial annihilation, the topmost planets, such as Brahmaloka, are not annihilated, but at the end of each duration of 4.3 million times 1,000 times 2 times 30 times 12 times 100 solar years, the entire cosmic manifestation is merged into the anti-material body, from whence the material principles had emanated and become manifest. The anti-material world, which is far removed from the material sky, is never annihilated. It absorbs the material world. It may be that a clash occurs between the material and anti-material worlds, as suggested by the scientists, and that the material worlds are destroyed, but there is no annihilation of the anti-material world. The eternally existing anti-material world is unmanifested to the material scientist. He can simply have information of it insofar as the principles of its existence are contrary to the modes of the material world. Full details of the anti-material universe can be known only from the infallible source of liberated authorities who have thoroughly realized the constitution of the anti-material principle. This information is received by oral reception, oral as in your aura, not oral as in coming out of your mouth, by a submissive disciple of the personality of Godhead. The Vedic knowledge was thus imparted into the heart of Brahma, the first living being in the material creation. It was Brahma who related this knowledge to the sage Narada Muni. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken by the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, to Vivasvan, the presiding deity of the sun. And when the oral chain of disciplic succession was broken, Lord Krishna repeated the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. At that time, Arjuna took the role of disciple and student in order to receive transcendental knowledge from Sri Krishna. In order to drive out all misgivings which the gross materialists of the world may have, Arjuna asked all relevant questions, and the answers were given by Krishna so that any layman can understand them. Only those who are captivated by the glamour of the material world cannot accept the authority of Lord Sri Krishna. One has to become thoroughly clean in habit and heart before one can understand the details of the anti-material world. Bhakti Yoga is a detailed scientific transcendental activity that both the neophyte and the perfect yogi can practice. The material world is only a shadow representation of the anti-material world, and intelligent men who are clean in heart and habit will be able to learn, in a nutshell, all the details of the anti-material world from the text of the Bhagavad Gita. And these are in actuality more exhaustive than material details. The basic details are as follows. The presiding deity of the anti-material world is Sri Krishna, who exists in his original personality as well as in his many planetary expansions. This personality and his plenary expansions can be known only by anti-material activities commonly known as Bhakti Yoga or devotional service. The personality of Godhead is the supreme truth, and he is the whole anti-material principle. The material principle, as well as the anti-material principle, is an emanation from his person. He is the root of the complete tree. When water is poured onto the root of a tree, the branches and leaves are nourished automatically. And in the same way, when Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is worshipped, all details of the material worlds are enlightened, and the heart of the devotee is nourished without his having to work in a materialistic way. This is the secret of the Bhagavad Gita. So maybe that's what our tarot card was saying a little bit too, where it says when water is poured onto the root of the tree, but that tree we saw was a tree of air. So maybe that's the next clue, is that we need to go up into the world of water. So taken from that 10th sphere, climbing up, and then from the first sphere of that air world, we would enter into the 10th sphere of that water world. The process of entering into the anti-material world differs from materialistic process. The individual living being can very easily enter the anti-material world by practicing anti-material activities while residing in the material world. But those who are truly gross materialists, who depend on the limited strength of experimental thought, mental speculation, and materialistic science, find greater difficulty in entering the anti-material world. The gross materialist may try to approach the anti-material world by endeavoring with spaceships, satellites, rockets, etc., which he throws into outer space, but by such means he cannot even approach the material planets in the higher regions of the material sky. And what to speak of those planets is situated in the anti-material sky, which is far beyond the material universe. Even the yogis who have perfectly controlled mystic powers have great difficulty entering into that region. Master yogis who control the anti-material particle within the material body by practice of mystic powers can give up their material bodies at will at a certain opportune moment, and can thus enter the anti-material worlds through a specific thoroughfare which connects the material and anti-material worlds. If they are at all able, they act in accordance with the prescribed method given in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who have realized the transcendence can reach the anti-material world by leaving their material bodies during the period of Uttarayana, that is, when the sun is on its northern path, or during auspicious moments in which the deities of fire and effulgence control the atmosphere. And Zachary Reyna, welcome. I hope you're having a good day. The different deities or powerful directing officers are appointed to act in the administration of cosmic activities. Foolish people who are unable to see the intricacies of cosmic management laugh at the idea of personal management of fire, air, electricity, days, nights, etc. by demigods. But the perfect yogis know how to satisfy these unseen administrators of material affairs, and taking advantage of the goodwill of these administrators, leave their material bodies at will during opportune moments arranged for entrance into the anti-material universe or into the highest planets of the material sky. In the higher planets of the material world, the yogis can enjoy more comfortable and more pleasant lives for hundreds of thousands of years. But life in those higher planets is not eternal. Those who desire eternal life enter into the anti-material universe through mystic powers at certain opportune moments created by the demigod administrators of cosmic affairs, administrators unseen by the gross materialists who reside on this seventh-class planet called Earth. Those who are not yogis but who die at an opportune moment due to pious acts of sacrifice, charity, penance, etc., can rise to the higher planets after death, but are subject to return to this planet, Earth. Their going forth takes place at a period known as Duma, the dark, moonless half of the month, or when the sun is on its southern path. In summary, the Bhagavad Gita recommends that one adopt the means of devotional service or anti-material activities if one wishes to enter the anti-material world. Those who adopt the means of devotional service as prescribed by the expert transcendentalists are never disappointed in their attempts to enter the anti-material world. Although the obstacles are many, the devotees of Lord Krishna can easily overcome them by rigidly following the path outlined by the transcendental devotees. Such devotees, who are passengers progressing in the journey of life toward the anti-material kingdom of God, are never bewildered. No one is cheated or disappointed when he adopts the guaranteed path of devotion for entrance into the anti-material universe. One can easily attain all the results that are derived from the studies of the Vedas, performances of sacrifice, practices of penance, and offerings of charity simply by the unilateral performance of devotional service, technically known as Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is therefore the great panacea for all, and it has been made easy to practice, especially in this Iron Age, by Lord Krishna himself in his most sublime, liberal, and munificent appearance as Lord Sri Caitanya, 1486 to 1534, who appeared in Bengal and spread the Sankirtana movement, singing, dancing, and chanting the names of God throughout India. By Lord Caitanya's grace, one can quickly pick up the principles of Bhakti Yoga. Thus, all misgivings in the heart will disappear, the fire of material tribulation will be extinguished, and transcendental bliss will be ushered in. In the fifth chapter of the Brahma Samhita, there is a description of the variegated planetary systems within the material world. It is also indicated in the Bhagavad Gita that there are variegated planetary systems in hundreds of thousands of material universes, and that altogether, these universes comprise only a fraction, 1/4, of the creative energy of the Godhead. The majority, 3/4, of the Lord's creative energy is manifested in the spiritual sky, called the Paravyoma or the Vaikuntha. These instructions of the Brahma Samhita and the Bhagavad Gita may be finally confirmed by the material scientist as he researches into the existence of the anti-material world. In addition, a February 21st, 1960 Moscow news release reported Russia's well-known professor of astronomy, Boris Vorontsov-Velyaminov, said that there must be an infinite number of planets in the universe inhabited by beings endowed with reason. This statement of the Russian astronomer is a confirmation of the information given in the Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, verse 40, which states, I don't know that I can read all that. Yasya Prabhavato Jagadanda. Well, I don't know what that translates into. It'll probably tell us. According to this quote from the Brahma Samhita, there are not only infinite number of planets as confirmed by the Russian astronomer, But there are also infinite numbers of universes. All these infinite universes with their infinite planets within are floating on and are produced by the Brahman effulgence emanating from the transcendental body of Mahavishnu, who is worshipped by Brahma, the presiding deity of the universe in which we are residing. The Russian astronomer also confirms that all the planets, which are estimated to be not less than 100 million, are inhabited. In the Brahma Samhita, there is indication that in each and every one of the infinite number of universes, there are, there are infinite numbers of variegated planets. The astronomer's view was seconded by Professor Vladimir Alpatov, a biologist who maintained that some of the above mentioned planets had reached a state of development corresponding to that of the Earth. The report from Moscow continued, and Anthony Arias, welcome. I'm glad you're loving it. Hope you're having a good day. Okay, the report from Moscow continued. It could be that life similar to that on Earth flourishes on such planets. Doctor of Chemistry Nikolai Zirov covered the problem of atmosphere on the planets, pointing out that the organism of a Martian, for instance, could very well adapt itself to normal existence with a low body temperature. He said that he felt that the gaseous composition of the atmosphere of Mars was quite suitable to sustain life of beings which have become adapted to it. Okay, so yeah, I think it was this book, but maybe it was another one where it goes on to say more like that, like on the sun, it's not impossible to think of beings that are made up of fire. Is that, I think it's how it worded it, but we'll see as we go along. The adaptability of organisms in different varieties of planets is described in the Brahma Samhita as Vibhuti Binam, i.e., each and every one of the innumerable planets within the universes is endowed with a particular type of atmosphere, and the living beings there are advanced in science, psychology, etc., according to the superiority or inferiority of the atmosphere. Vibhuti means specific power, and Binam means variegated. Scientists who are attempting to explore outer space in an attempt to reach other planets by mechanical means must realize that organisms adapted to the atmosphere of the Earth cannot exist in the atmospheres of other planets. As such, man's attempts to reach the moon, the sun, or Mars will be completely futile because of the different atmospheres prevailing on those planets. Individually, however, one can attempt to go to any planet he desires, but this is only possible by psychological changes in the mind. Mind is the nucleus of the material body. Okay, so there's another little spin on our Ten of Swords. Those psychological changes, taking your sword, putting those to ruin so that you can now gravitate towards these changes in the mind you want in order to achieve this planetary travel. And Elmarod Yusupov, welcome. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Mind is the nucleus of the material body. The gradual evolutionary progress of the material body depends on psychological changes within the mind. The change of the bodily construction of a worm into that of a butterfly, and in modern medical science, the conversion of a man's body into that of a woman, or vice versa, are more or less dependent on psychological changes. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that if a man, at the time of death, concentrates his mind upon the form of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and while so doing relinquishes his body, he at once enters the spiritual existence of the anti-material world. This means that anyone who trains the mind to turn from matter to the spiritual form of the Godhead by performance of the prescribed rules of devotional service can easily attain the kingdom of God in the anti-material sky. And so, see, there you go in the Christian, where Christ even says the only way to the Father is through me. Similar idea. Krishna and Christ can be very easily compared to one another. So putting your focus towards that will lead you from the Son to the Father. Okay, and of this there is no doubt. And in the same way, if one desires to enter into any other planet of the material sky, he can go there just after quitting the present body, i.e., after death. Thus, if someone wants to go to the moon, the sun, or Mars, he can do so simply by performing acts for that purpose. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this statement in the following words. That upon which a person meditates at the time of death, quitting his body, absorbed in the thought thereof, that particular thing he attains after death. Maharaja Bharata, despite a life of severe penances, thought of a stag at the time of his death, and thus became a stag after death. However, he did retain consciousness of his past life and realized his mistake. It is important to realize that one's thoughts at the time of death are influenced by the actual deeds which one performs during his life. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 32, the process of entering the moon is described as follows. Materialistic minded men who have no information of the kingdom of God are always mad after material acquisition of wealth, fame, and adoration. Such men are interested in the progressive wheel of their particular family unit for their own self satisfaction, and so are also interested in the progress of social and national welfare. These men attain their desired objects by material activities. They are mechanically engaged in a ritualistic discharge of prescribed duties and are consequently inclined to satisfy the Pitas, or bygone forefathers, and controlling demigods by performance of sacrifices as prescribed by the revealed scriptures. Addicted to such acts of sacrifices and ceremonial observances, such souls enter into the moon after death. When one is thus promoted to the moon, he receives the capacity to enjoy the drinking of somarasa, a celestial beverage. That sounds delicious. The moon is a place where the demigod Candra is the predominating deity. The atmosphere and amenities of life there are far more comfortable and advantageous than those here on Earth. After reaching the moon, if a soul does not utilize the opportunity for promotion to better planets, he is degraded and forced to return to Earth or a similar planet. However, materialistic persons, although they may attain to the topmost planetary system, are certainly annihilated at the time of cosmic manifestations disillusion. As far as the planetary system of the spiritual sky is concerned, there are unlimited Vaikuntha planets in the Paravyoma. The Vaikunthas are spiritual planets which are manifestations of the internal potency of the Lord. And the ratio of these planets to the material planets, external energy, in the material sky is 3 to 1. So the poor materialist is busy making political adjustments on a planet which is most insignificant in God's creation. To say nothing of this planet Earth, the whole universe with innumerable planets throughout the galaxies is comparable to a mustard seed in a bag full of mustard seeds. But the poor materialist makes plans to live comfortably here and thus wastes his valuable human energy in something which is doomed to frustration. Instead of wasting his time with this plan making business, he might have sought the life of a plain living and high spiritual thinking and thus saved himself from perpetual materialistic unrest. And Zachary Rayna says, truth, 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 truth. Nice. Even if a materialist wants to enjoy developed material facilities, he can transfer himself to planets where he can experience material pleasures much more advanced than those available on the Earth planet. But the best plan is to prepare oneself to return to the spiritual sky after leaving the body. However, if one is intent on enjoying material facilities, one can transfer himself to other planets in the material sky by utilizing yogic powers. The playful spaceships of the astronauts are but childish entertainments and are of no use for this purpose. Oh, dang. The Astanga yoga system is also materialistic inasmuch as it teaches one to control the movements of air within the material body. The spiritual spark, the soul, is floating on air within the body, and inhalation and exhalation are the waves of that air containing the soul. Therefore, the yoga system is a materialistic art of controlling this air by transferring it from the stomach to the navel, from the chest to the collarbone, and from there to the eyeballs, and from there to the cerebellum, and from there to any desired planet. The velocities of air and light are taken into consideration by the material scientist, but he has no information on of the velocity of the mind and intelligence. We have some limited experience of the velocity of the mind because in a moment we can transfer our minds to places hundreds of thousands of miles away. Intelligence is even finer. Finer than intelligence is the soul, which is not matter like mind and intelligence, but is spirit or antimatter. The soul is hundreds of thousands of times finer and more powerful than intelligence. We can thus only imagine the velocity of the soul in its traveling from one planet to another. Needless to say, the soul travels by its own strength and not with the help of any kind of material vehicle. The bestial civilization of eating, sleeping, fearing, and sense gratifying has misled modern man into forgetting how powerful a soul he is. As we have already described, the soul is a spiritual spark which is many, many times more illuminating, dazzling, and powerful than the sun, the moon, or electricity. Human life is spoiled when man does not realize his real identity with his soul. Lord Caitanya appeared with Lord Nityananda to save man from this type of misleading civilization. Srimad Bhagavatam also describes how yogis can travel to all the planets in the universe. When the vital force is lifted to the cerebellum, there is every chance of this force bursting out from the eyes, nose, ears, etc., as these are places which are known as the seventh orbit of the vital force. But the yogis can block these holes by complete suspension of air. The yogi then concentrates the vital force in the middle position, that is, between the eyebrows. At this position, the yogi can think of the planet into which he wants to enter after leaving the body. He can then decide whether he wants to go to the abode of Krishna in the transcendental Vaikunthas, from which he will not be required to descend into the material world or to travel to higher planets in the material universe. The perfect yogi is at liberty to do either. For the perfect yogi who has attained success in the method of leaving his body in perfect consciousness, transferring from one planet to another, is as easy as an ordinary man's walking to the grocery store. As already discussed, the material body is just a covering of the spiritual soul. Mind and intelligence are the undercoverings, and the gross body of earth, water, air, etc., is the overcoating of the soul. As such, any advanced soul who has realized himself by the yogic process, who knows the relationship between matter and spirit, can leave the gross dress of the soul in perfect order as he desires. By the grace of God, we have complete freedom. Because the Lord is kind to us, we can live anywhere, either in the spiritual sky or in the material sky, upon whichever planet we desire. However, misuse of this freedom causes one to fall down into the material world and suffer the threefold miseries of conditioned life. The living of a miserable life in the material world by dint of the soul's choice is nicely illustrated by Milton in Paradise Lost. Similarly, by choice, the soul can regain paradise and return home back to Godhead. At the critical time of death, one can place the vital force between the two eyebrows and decide where he wants to go. If he is reluctant to maintain any connection with the material world, he can, in less than a second, reach the transcendental Vaikuntha world, and appear there in a completely spiritual body just suitable for him in the spiritual atmosphere. He has simply to desire to leave the material world in both finer and grosser forms and then move the vital force to the topmost part of the skull and leave the body from the hole in the skull called the Brahmarandra. This is the highest perfection in the practice of yoga. Of course, man is endowed with free will, and as such, if he does not want to free himself of the material world, he may enjoy the life of Brahmapada, occupation of the post of Brahma, and visit Siddhaloka, the planets of materially perfect beings who have full abilities to control gravity, space, time, etc. To visit these higher planets in the material universe, one need not give up his mind and intelligence, finer matter, bless you, but need only give up his body made of grosser matter. Man made satellites and mechanical space vehicles will never be able to carry human beings to the planets of outer space. Oh no. Men cannot even go on their much advertised trips to the moon. For as we have already stated, the atmosphere on such higher planets is different from the atmosphere here on Earth. Each and every planet has its particular atmosphere, and if one wants to travel to any particular planet within the material universe, one has to have a material body exactly adapted to the climatic condition of that planet. For instance, if one wants to go from India to Europe, where the climatic condition is different, one has to change his dress accordingly. Similarly, a complete change of body is necessary if one wants to go to the transcendental planets of Vaikuntha. If one wants to go to the higher material planets, he can keep his finer dress of mind, intelligence, and ego, but he has to leave his gross dress, body, made of earth, water, fire, etc. When one goes to a transcendental planet, however, it is necessary to change both the finer and gross bodies, for one has to reach the spiritual sky completely in a spiritual form. This change of dress will take place automatically at the time of death if one so desires. But this desire is possible at death only if the desire is cultivated during life. When one performs fruitive actions, one cultivates desires in relation with the material world. But when one practices devotional service, one cultivates a desire for the kingdom of God. The following details outline a general practice by which one can prepare himself for an easy journey to the Vaikuntha, anti-material planets, where life is free from birth, old age, disease, and death. Well, 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 don't tell NASA that. Okay, let's see, general practice. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll go through these next couple pages till we get to the pictures, and then let's see. Well, yeah, let's at least do that for now. But maybe we'll actually end up knocking out this chapter 1 today. Okay, so here we go. General practice. Positive functions. 1. The serious candidate must accept a bona fide spiritual master in order to be trained scientifically. Because the senses are material, it is not at all possible to realize the transcendence by them. Therefore, the senses have to be spiritualized by the prescribed method under the direction of the spiritual master. 2. When the student has chosen a bona fide spiritual master, he must take proper initiation from him. This marks the beginning of spiritual training. 3. The candidate must be prepared to satisfy the spiritual master in every way. A bona fide spiritual master who is fully cognizant of the methods of spiritual science learned in the spiritual scriptures such as the Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta Sutras, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Upanishads, and who is also a realized soul who has made a tangible connection with the Supreme Lord, is the transparent medium by which the willing candidate is led to the path of the Vaikunthas. The spiritual master must be satisfied in all respects, because simply by his good wishes, a candidate can make wonderful progress along the path. 4. The intelligent candidate places intelligent questions to the spiritual master in order to clear his path of all uncertainties. The spiritual master shows the way, not whimsically, but in accordance with the principles of the authorities who have actually traversed the path. The names of these authorities are disclosed in the scriptures, and one has simply to follow them under the direction of the spiritual master. The spiritual master never deviates from the path of the authorities. 5. The candidate should always try to follow in the footsteps of the great sages who have practiced the method and obtained success. This should be taken as a motto in life. One should not superficially imitate them, but should follow them sincerely in terms of the particular time and circumstances. 6. The candidate must be prepared to change his habits in terms of the instructions contained in the books of authority, and for the satisfaction of the Lord, he must be prepared to sacrifice both sense gratification and sense abnegation, following the example of Arjuna. 7. The candidate should live in a spiritual atmosphere. 8. He must be satisfied with as much wealth as is sufficient for maintenance only. He should not try to amass more wealth than is necessary to sustain himself in a simple way. 9. He must observe the fasting dates, such as the 11th day of the growing and waning moon. 10. He must show respect to the banyan tree, the cow, the learned brahmana, and the devotee. These are the first stepping stones on the path of devotional service. Gradually, one has to adopt other items which are negative in character. Okay, then. So, 11. One should avoid offenses in the discharge of devotional service and in chanting the holy names. 12. He should avoid extensive association with non devotees. 13. He must not take on unlimited disciples. This means that a candidate who has successfully followed the first 12 items can also become a spiritual master himself, just as a student becomes a monitor in class with a limited number of disciples. Okay. 14. He must not pose himself as a vastly learned man simply by quoting statements in books. He must have solid knowledge of the necessary books without superfluous knowledge in others. 15. A regular and successful practice of the above 14 items will enable the candidate to maintain mental equilibrium even amidst great trials of material loss and gain. 16. In the next stage, the candidate does not become afflicted by lamentation and illusion. 17. He does not deride another's mode of religion or worship, nor does he deride the personality of Godhead or his devotees. 18. He never tolerates blasphemy against the Lord or his devotees. 19. He should not indulge in the discussion of topics dealing with the relationship between man and woman, nor should he engage in useless topics concerning others' family affairs. 20. He should not inflict pain, either in body or in mind, upon other living beings, whomsoever they may be. Out of the above 20 items, the first 3 positive items are imperative and most essential for the serious candidate. There are 44 other items to be followed by the serious candidate, but Lord Caitanya has selected 5 as the most important. These were selected owing to the present conditions of civic life. They are as follows. 1. One should associate with the devotees. Association with devotees is made possible by hearing them attentively, by asking them relevant questions, by supplying them food and accepting food from them, and by giving them charity and accepting from them whatever they offer. 2. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in all circumstances. The chanting of the Lord's name is an easy and inexpensive process of realization. One can chant any of the innumerable names of the Lord at any time. One should try to avoid offenses. There are 10 offenses which one can commit while chanting the transcendental names, and these should be avoided as far as possible. But in any event, one should try to chant the holy names of the Lord at all times. 3. One should hear the transcendental topics enunciated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This hearing is made possible through platform lectures by bona fide devotees and by authorized translations of the Bhagavatam. 4. One should make his home at Mathura, the birthplace of Lord Krishna. Or one may make his home as good as Mathura by installing the deity of the Lord to be worshipped by all members of the family after proper initiation from the spiritual master. 5. One should worship the installed deity with attention and devotion so that the whole atmosphere of one's home becomes a replica of the Lord's abode. This is made possible by the direction of the spiritual master who knows the transcendental art and can show the candidate the proper. The above 5 items can be adopted by any man in any part of the world. Thus, anyone can prepare himself for returning home back to Godhead by the simple method recognized by authorities such as Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who specifically invented himself to deliver the fallen souls of this age. Well, that was nice of him. Okay, and there's a picture of Swami Prabhupada. And then, oh, come on, book. And then let me check one more time how many pages there were left of this chapter. Okay, yeah, we'll do one more session. I'm going to read this page and then we'll call it good for the day. And then we'll start off the next session for this class with some more of these pictures and finishing up at least this chapter 1, maybe get started into chapter 2. Okay. For further details on this subject, one should read literatures like the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, of which we have presented an English summary study entitled The Nectar of Devotion. The whole process of transferring oneself to the spiritual sky involves gradually liquidating the material composition of the gross and subtle coverings of the spirit soul. The above mentioned 5 items of devotional activities are so spiritually powerful that their performance by a devotee, even in the preliminary stage, can very quickly promote the sincere executor to the stage of bhava, the stage just prior to love of Godhead. Or emotion on the spiritual plane, which is transcendental to mental and intellectual functions. And complete absorption in love of God makes one fit to be transferred to the spiritual sky just after leaving the material tabernacle. The perfection of love of God by a devotee actually situates him on the spiritual platform, even though he may still maintain a gross material body. He becomes like an iron rod, which, when in contact with fire, actually ceases to be iron and acts like fire. These things are made possible by the Lord's inscrutable and inconceivable energy, which material science has not the scope to calculate. One should therefore engage himself in devotional service with absolute faith, and to make his faith steadfast, one should seek the association of the Lord's standard devotees in person, if possible, or by thinking of them. This association will help one develop factual devotional service to the Lord, which will cause all material misgivings to disappear like a flash of lightning. All these different stages of spiritual realization will be personally felt by the candidate, and this will create in him a firm belief that he is making positive progress on the way to the spiritual sky. Then he will become sincerely attached to the Lord and his abode. Such is the gradual process of evolving love of God, which is the prime necessity for the human form of life. All right, what's the prime necessity for the form of human life? The human form of life? That's the gradual process of evolving love of God. And that's a good place to end it for sure. So, thank you all for your presence, Zachary Reyna. I'm glad you find this information to be so truthful. Man, that chat looks a lot like other chats I see. And, well, that's all right. I appreciate it. And everybody else, some of these newcomers, Vinod Kumar, Simon Sprunky, Joaquin Alegre, and let's see, Anthony Arias, and Elmarad Yusupov. Nice. All right. Cool. We had a whole new squad in here today. That's always nice. Well, welcome. Hopefully some of you enjoyed this and you stick around. Otherwise, may your journey be blessed. May you be successful in the achievements that you are setting out to do. And same to the rest of you. I appreciate you all so very much. I love you all so very much. We will be back with Transcendental Magic for class tomorrow. Chapter 10 on Kabbalah, that's going to be pretty good. And then we'll get back to this toward the end of the week like usual. So hopefully it's a good little treat for now. And I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday or just a wonderful time and space wherever you're at. Much love, many blessings. This has been Jay Balvale, and this has been AC Bhaktivedanta's Easy Journey to Other Planets, aka Swami Prabhupada Ramakrishna. He had a lot of names. All right, everybody. Bye-bye. I'll see you on the next class.